Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of Power Hour. Today, we're going to talk about the OrionLX or OrionLX Plus direct video setup. I myself, Chi Carnegie, will be co-hosted with Eob Halamariam for today's Power Hour. All right, today's agenda, we are going to focus on the OrionLX and the OrionLX Plus. The reason being, these are the two Orions in our Orion family that supports a video display, video output. So on the LX, we have the multimedia board, and then LX Plus, we have the multimedia card. So we'll go over the summary of that for anyone who haven't used these yet. We're going to provide an overview of the transduction monitors. So these are the monitors that we usually quote and recommend out to certain projects. Usually, if you don't have a preference already in-house or standard, we can provide you with a quote for a transduction monitor. So I can kind of give you an overview of that. And then Eob's actually going to go through a live demonstration of the direct video, so our Orion environment / desktop. I'm not going to go through all those, but he will go through that as he do the live demonstration. And then at the end, we're just going to go through a quick review of the certain settings in your Orion webpage that correlates to the Orion displays. All right, so quick recap for anyone who hasn't used our OrionLX or LX Plus. On the LX, we have a multimedia board, or MMB is what we call it. So this is the board that's an optional board on the LX, and it has to be an LX CPX. It can't be a regular LX, just because video requires a lot more memory, and our regular LX, which is a little bit outdated now, does not have enough memory. Keep in mind, if you have a LX CPX and you want a multimedia board, you do have to send it back to the factory. This is not a field swappable or field installable card. So we will have to install this for you if you need to have that place. The multimedia board comes with a VGA output, 2 USB port for your keyboard and mouse, and an additional Ethernet port, and then a 3.5 millimeter audio jack for, let's say, if you want a speaker in your substation to, let's say, play a sound when there's an alarm. That's what that audio jack's used for. So kind of quick summary over the VGA technology that comes with the OrionLX. VGA stands for Video Graphic Array. It's more of an analog interface. I always kind of say this is the equivalent to an RS-232 cable, but more a video application rather than communication application. It's quite old, originally in 1987. It became standard for pretty much all computer video outputs. Back then, that's pretty much all that was available, so it became a standard for monitors, projectors, TVs. Obviously, technology advances. We're moving towards more digital interfaces. So you'll notice that on your laptop, you probably don't have a VGA port anymore. It's being phased out. Well, you probably don't have many ports anymore on your laptops. All right, so on the OrionLX Plus, instead of a multimedia board, we call it multimedia card. A little bit more simpler this time. We do have a display port now rather than a VGA port, and then the same audio jack. The reason why we switched to this multimedia card on the LX Plus is higher performance for screen refresh, and this card can be field swappable or can be field added, so that you don't have to send back the unit for us to add it in for you. So that's a bit one of the big difference. A quick overview of the display port interface. It is digital, so no more analog, replaces VGA. Display port can carry video signal and audio signal simultaneously. So that's the difference between the VGA and display port. VGA cannot carry audio. It is the first display interface to rely on packetized data transmission. So similar to Ethernet communication. And then depending on what type of inputs your monitor uses, it can be converted to various interfaces using various adapters. The cable that we do provide with our OrionLX Plus DisplayPort, one of the key features that I do want to highlight is that it does contain these teeth. And so for anyone who's worried about, being in a vibration environment, that cable will come loose, it won't come loose because of those teeth. And then if you do want to disconnect, click this button and it'll lower those teeth down and you can disconnect from your DisplayPort. The common adapters that you can use to convert your DisplayPort to other interfaces. This one can be to HDMI. This one, if you're still having a VGA monitor, you can still use a DisplayPort to VGA. And then DisplayPort to DVI. So this adapter, we actually provide cable rather than a short adapter. We do provide a DisplayPort to DVI cable when we ship out the OrionLX Plus. All right, just kind of do a quick overview of the steps to connect your monitor to your Orion. These are the recommended steps. Seem straightforward, but sometimes there are issues if you don't do these steps in the right order. So we always recommend that your Orion's powered down. So sometimes if it's powered up and you connect to a monitor to the Orion, it won't automatically recognize it. So it's not similar to your laptop and so on. So ensure the Orion's powered down. Connect the monitor, keyboard, mouse, and if you have speakers to the proper ports on the MMB or MMC cards, and then power on the Orion. So during the boot up, it will start recognizing the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse. So just be aware that if you are connecting the monitor or keyboard or mouse to a Orion that it's booted up, you might run into an issue where it doesn't recognize it. So make sure you power it down. All right, an overview of the Transduction touchscreen monitor that we usually provide or recommend in our projects. It can be rack mountable or panel mount. It comes in various power inputs, so pretty much any standard power input that you require in the field, it supports. One main tip that our support team runs into for anyone calling in for transduction support is that even though transduction has a mode to say pick auto mode, so it can technically is supposed to be able to detect between the DVI input, VGA, and DisplayPort. We find that it doesn't auto detect quickly or seamlessly, so we just recommend instead of just using auto mode, just select what port you're actually connected to. So if your Orion's connected to the DVI input, just select the DVI mode. So that's a tip for this transduction monitor. At the bottom of the transduction monitor, you'll see that there's a 12-volt DC input terminal blocks. There's an optional 12-volt DC input jack here too. That's optional. There's 3 types of ports, the DVI, VGA, and DisplayPort. And then we have a USB port for touchscreen. So that's, I believe, is more for resistive. We're going to go through that for types of touchscreen technology that the transduction support in next a few slides over. In the back of the transduction touchscreen monitor, you'll see that there is some diagnostic LEDs, power on and off, monitor LEDs here. And then the 12-volt DC is actually coming from this power supply here, and here you can actually input in whatever your field power input, and that will get converted to the 12-volt DC input here. All right, resistive is what I was trying to mention, that USB port is for resistive. I wasn't actually aware of this until I started doing research for this power hour. Transduction monitor does support 3 types of touchscreen technology. The most common one is resistive. Resistive is, the technology is actually composed of 2 flexible sheets. with resistant materials and separated by the air gap. So what that means is that when you touch the screen, the two sheets actually touch each other at that point, and that's where the monitor knows where you're actually touching the screen. It does require that USB power input to that. Allow finger or non-finger stylus, a glove, etc. for the monitor, often used for touchscreen monitors. So this is the most common one that we quote out or send out to for our projects. There are two other ones, capacitive. It is also available for transduction monitors, and it actually uses, so instead of USB powering that screen, that touch screen, is actually your body, the conductivity of your human body is what it detects, and that's where you're pointing on the screen. This technology is a little bit more advanced. It's often used on your smartphone and tablet, and that's the technology that you can actually use multiple fingers. That's how you can do, zoom in, zoom out on your touchscreen on your phone. And then the last one, surface acoustic wave, or also known as SAW. It uses ultrasonic waves to pass over the touchscreen panel to detect where you're touching, and this actually is often used more in ATMs and kiosks. So so that everyone's aware, there are 3 available types of touchscreen for these transduction monitors. All right, so all the kind of summary or overview of the technology. With that, I'm going to actually now switch over to Eob to show the transduction monitor itself.
All right, thanks, Chi.
Yeah, I'm going to switch to you.
All right. All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another session of Power Hour. And what I'll be going through today is going to be some of the Orion LX MMB video port, or OrionLX MMB or OrionLX Plus multimedia card video port features. So when you power up your Orion, when the Orion is powered up and you have, let's say, for example, an OrionLX Plus and with a multimedia card in the back that has a display port like Chi was mentioning, and you have a monitor connected to that video port, what should happen when the Orion is done booting up is you should see a screen like this. Basically, the browser by default opens up. So that's if you have the Orion set up for auto login. So auto login is one of the web interface settings that you can make on the Orion. Chi will actually go through that a little bit after I finish up some of the web interface settings for your direct video. But you do have 2 options. You have an option to set up your Orion to auto login. So when the monitor boots up, when the Orion boots up and the monitor is powered on, it auto logs in and it basically brings you to this screen here. And again, depending on your Orion web UI settings, you might have to log into the home page or you might not. It's more of a settings. It's more of a settings thing. The other option is that you don't set up auto login. So what that means is the Orion boots up, the monitor is connected, and basically when the monitor is, if the monitor is powered on, it's going to basically have you go into a login terminal. So you're going to have a little login window where it's going to say username and password, and it's going to ask you to log in so that you could get into the Orion, what we call the Orion environment. So that's 2 options: either have auto login or you have no auto login set up and it wants you to log in for you to see what you're seeing now. Aside from that, we're going to be using a few terms. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I'm going to be using a term called, I'll call it Orion environment. Basically what you're seeing now, this entire screen, including the taskbar up here, any applications that I'm running, they're all inside the Orion environment. So I'll be using that term. I'll also be using the term taskbar. Taskbar is basically similar to what you would see on your computer when you have different applications running. Very similar here. If you have additional applications running, or you're going to see them kind of, you're going to see different tabs that appear on this panel, on this bar right here. So again, I'm going to refer to that as a taskbar. With that said, this is what, so if you have Orion, once you've logged into the Orion through the video port, this is again what you should see. Again, the browser is normally not going to be in a full screen mode unless you've kind of set it to be that way. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But so you can go ahead and kind of maximize that screen by coming here and kind of putting it into the full screen mode. All right. I guess this is kind of partial full screen mode because you could also have it kind of get rid of the link bar and the task bar as well. And now that would be a full screen mode there. So we'll touch on that and how to kind of set that up in a little bit as well. So the first thing I want to do is really kind of go through the different menu of options under applications. So in this Orion environment, where you're going to have all your different applications is going to be under this applications tab in the top left-hand corner. So if I go to applications, notice I have a few different applications to go through here today with you guys. Settings, we'll go through some of the different setting options that you have available for the Orion environment. You also have accessories. Accessories is basically some of the different applications that you could use. So we'll go through each one of those. Under graphics, we'll actually talk about what document viewer is, image viewer. They're pretty self-explanatory, but what kind of files would you want to open up, and what applications would it be beneficial? So we'll touch on some of those items there. Under multimedia, we have some volume control options. Under network, what we have a couple things there. We have the Orion web browser. We also have the Orion. We also have the Wireshark, which is going to be our network analyzer. It comes standard with the video port option. So if you have a multimedia board or multimedia card on the OrionLX, then this network analyzer comes standard with that as a feature. Under system, we'll kind of talk about some of the options that you have there, and then lastly, we'll kind of log out, log in, kind of show you what that looks like as well. So to start, let's go ahead and begin on settings under Setting Manager. Settings Manager is essentially, again, like I mentioned, the Orion environment, the overall interface, video interface is kind of what this is for. So if I go to Setting Manager, I can come here and kind of have options to modify appearance, the colors, desktop option, and some of the things with some of the preferred applications, and I'm setting that. Some of your display settings for your hardware, which, what's most common, again, you don't really have to do this really. A lot of times when you get an Orion with a Transduction touchscreen monitor and the cable's already connected, a lot of times you don't really have to do this. But if you ever wanted to modify like icons, I could see somebody having to want to make some icons bigger. You go to your desktop and be able to kind of, if you have images or screenshots or something like that you want to make your background, your wallpaper for your desktop, you can definitely do that. Or you could go to icons and kind of be able to adjust the size of the different icons, just kind of like how you would on a laptop or a PC. But be able to have those tools available to you. And other options that are available are kind of like under display, maybe if you wanted to adjust the resolution or change the rotation, or to change the rotation of the screen, the refresh rate, what kind of monitor you're connecting. Again, all of these in the past, my personal experience, they've kind of auto-adjusted to whatever monitor I've connected to, and everything just looked right. Without having me to come in and make these changes or adjustments here. But if you ever needed to, it's available here for you. So there's a lot here under the Orion Environment Settings Manager, but those are the desktop and display are going to be the most common. Next, you have tools to calibrate the screen. So there's two options. One option is to clear the calibration data. The other one says calibrate touchscreen. So you have a couple different options there when it comes to calibration. The Orion the Orion, when you originally receive it and with the monitor and everything, it comes calibrated already. If you wanted to clear that and kind of do your own calibration, you could simply do the clear calibration data. That's going to do is give you a quite small terminal, giving you, hey, it's going to delete the calibration data that you have in the Orion as of now. So I'll just say yes. As soon as I've done that, it's basically cleared it. One thing to note with that clear that I just did is that since I hit yes, it didn't fully clear, I have to log out and log back in for it to take effect. So essentially, I'm going to log out here, and then I'm going to log in. So now I know the data for my calibration data has been fully cleared, and I'm ready to calibrate the Orion, or the monitor. So let's go ahead and log out just so our calibration data is clear. And again, whenever I log out, you'll see a screen to log in. That's very similar to what you would do if it's not auto login. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm going to log in back to the screen, and now I know my settings that I've set. I'm going to go back instead of my home page. I'm going to go back to my home page. Now I know my clear data has fully worked because I've cleared it. You said yes, and I've also logged out, logged back in. There are some settings that require you to log out and log in, and that's one of them. Next thing, now that I've cleared my calibration data, now I could calibrate my monitor. So again, this is going to be the touchscreen monitor. So I'm going to basically go up to the monitor and touch 4 points for me to calibrate the monitor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Calibrate Touchscreen. So now that I've done that, you see a gray screen, and kind of a little bit hard to see, but it's kind of, you see that little, you see this icon here where it wants me to tap in this, anywhere in this direction, so it could calibrate my touch for that monitor. I was a little slow doing it, so let me try it one more time. So I'm going to go to Settings, Calibrate Touchscreen. All right. So now that I've hit all 4 indexes, it actually basically kind of calibrates that touch screen so that when I'm using my finger or when I'm using a monitor pen, then it appropriately touches the right tab, essentially. So that is something that I would definitely recommend when you get one of these monitors. Just go through that calibration process for that touchscreen monitor, and just make sure and to calibrate to, whatever height that it's at and whatever visual you're looking at, and just making sure you're touching it in the right, in the most accurate place. So keep that in mind there. Definitely recommend that under settings. So again, under settings, calibrate touchscreen is something that we would recommend. Another option that you have here is opening up the command line terminal. So for those of you guys that are familiar with kind of connecting to the front of the Orion with a USB cable, this would be similar to log connecting, making that same exact connection, but connecting using the root login, which gives you the command line. So if I launch it, what you'll find is a command line terminal. From here, you could really run whatever Linux commands that you want to run on this Orion. Again, the Orion is a Linux operating system, so it's, you could run whatever you want. So if I ran a date command, for example, it gives me the current date and time, and I could double check that and whatnot. You could do ipconfig and all those kind of things, and move within different directories. So for those of you guys that are familiar with Linux, you'll find your way around here pretty easily. I'm going to go ahead and close this terminal for now. So that's going to be essentially the root command, logging in as root from the front USB port. Again, you can do that directly from the monitor if you have keyboard and mouse accessibility. The last option that you see here is going to be toggle browser full screen mode. So essentially what this is going to be able to go into the full screen mode that I mentioned earlier, where you don't have the link bar or the taskbar anymore. So essentially all the user is able to see is the web browser. So if I do that, for example, now I'm going to click on it. When I click on it, what you'll see is nothing really happens initially. So what it wants you to do is, this is one of those settings where it wants you to log out and log back in. So essentially when the Orion monitor logs back in, so let me log out again and log in. So I'll log out first. When I log back in, what you'll find is that my Orion, my browser is actually in the full mode now, instead of seeing the link bar and so on. So what I did right now is I hit F11. Again, very similar to your laptop or PC. F11 allows you to go into a full screen mode versus kind of where you're able to see some of the taskbars and link bars and such. So I'm going to go back to my home page. So again, that just basically allows you to have the Orion, as soon as you log in, appear in a full screen mode. So that's what that does under Applications, Settings, Toggle Browser, Full Screen Mode. All right. Again, keep in mind this does require you to log out and log back in so you can actually see that. So when you click it the first time, you're really not going to see much. You have to really log out and log back in, and you'll see the Orion logging in into the full screen mode. So that's going to be Settings. Under Accessories, we have Calculator. So Calculator is one of the applications you have available to you. Let's say you're in a situation where you're in the substation and you really want to be able to do a quick calculation just to make sure some of your readings are coming in right, and you don't have your phone or your laptop near you. And so this is just nice to be able to have this calculator right built into the monitor, built into the Orion, so that you could access it through the monitor. Next application, next accessory that's available to you is a text editor. So if I launch that, it's basically like a notepad kind of tool that's similar to what's on your PC. So we call it a mouse pad on the Orion. But essentially, I could open up a text file essentially with this mouse pad. So I could go to File, and I could go to Open, and I could go searching for a file. So for example, if I go to my file system, again, this is the Linux directories on the Orion itself that I'm navigating through. So if I go to the etc directory and go to the Orion directory, where is it at? There it is. And if I do that, you'll see here, I'll see all my NCD files, my logic files, my NCZ files, and so on. If I wanted to open up maybe one of the config files on my Orion, I could do that, and you could do that, and it looks like this. And for those of you guys that have opened NCD or Orion configuration files in text, in the text module, a text application, you've seen this before. Again, it's very structured. It's easy to read through. So, for example, if I go through, I could come here and kind of look through like port 1 settings. So port 1 device is the SCL351S, the level 1, level 2 passwords, some of the other different attributes that have been set in the configuration file, what the relay firmware is, and things like that. And these are, again, all part of what's in the NCD file. Whenever you're building that NCD configuration file, you're making all these setting changes, choosing what device, choosing what firmware, picking the points. So again, you're able to see the config file, the raw config file, just with the monitor and a keyboard. So that is definitely a benefit. We don't recommend making changes to this, because if you do make a mistake and you're off by a syntax, then it kind of throws off whatever port you're configuring. That's why it's always safer to configure offline in NCD, which is an offline configuration software. So definitely recommended to make configuration changes in NCD. But again, for those customers that are more experienced and understand the Orion, I've definitely seen customers make changes. We've definitely made changes here and kind of loaded them and things like that. So you do have that option available to you. Definitely recommend NCD though, so keep that in mind. But nonetheless, it gives you a way to look at settings. So if you wanted to confirm maybe a device is not communicating and you just want to take a quick look at the config file, you could open this up and kind of look at the baud rates, the parity and whatnot, just double check to see if something is inaccurate or not correct. So that is definitely a nice tool to have there, the text editor. Next is a screenshot. So screenshot is kind of nice. So let's say, for example, I have a browser and maybe I want to take a screenshot of what I'm looking at right now so that I could either save it on the Orion for somebody else to look at it later, or save it on the Orion and send it to somebody later. whatever you're wanting to do, you could certainly do that. So you could do a screenshot here under accessories, take a screenshot and say, I want to take a screenshot of the entire screen or just maybe select a region. I'm just going to do an entire screen right now. I'm going to hit OK. And now that it's taken a screenshot, it shows me a preview. I could save this screenshot. And I hit OK and ask me where do I want to save it. I'm just going to save it on the NovaTech directory here. And I'll just say save. So now that I've saved it, I could also, we'll take a look at that screenshot in a second as an image, essentially. But that is a tool that you have there available to you, just being able to take a screenshot of whatever you're looking at for comparison purposes, or just to save it as, hey, this is a setting that was made. I made this change, and kind of be able to save it somewhere. File manager, not much there. It's really kind of what I was looking at a second ago, being able to look at the different directories on the Orion, the different, the etc directories, the boot directory, bin, and be able to navigate through them and being able to. So if you know how the directory is structured, you'll know your way around this. Most customers don't have to know the way how these directories are structured, but with the Linux operating system, there are some standard directories where Postgres files are located, key files are located, configuration files are located, and so on. And so those customers are able to kind of figure out their way around that. But it's more of just a file manager tool there that's available. Next, we have graphics. Under graphics, we have document viewer and image viewer. So document viewer is kind of nice. If I go to document viewer, I'm able to open up some type of document like a PDF. So in this case, I went ahead and used FileZilla to load a file onto my Orion, just a PDF. So if I wanted to open up a file, I could go ahead and search for a particular PDF. In this case, for today's Power Hour, I went ahead and just loaded a quick startup guide PDF into the Orion. Again, this quick startup guide is in our different user manuals. So if I open that up, I'm able to take a look at that PDF and kind of walk through it. Again, keep in mind, it's kind of nice to have, a few PDFs loaded into Orion, maybe a quick startup guide. So if somebody's new to the Orion or just needed a refresher on some settings or whatever, they could open up a PDF, look through, read it on the monitor that's connected to the Orion, and be able to kind of understand something or figure something out there, and or kind of direct it somewhere. So being able to open up a PDF is just a nice little tool. So this is essentially a document reader that's available for you. Another option that's under graphics is image viewer. So this is going to go back to that screenshot I took. Again, I don't have anything open right now, but if I go to File, Open, I can open up that screenshot that I just took, take a look at what that looks like. And so this is a screenshot of what I did, and if I had multiple, and they're all like different settings pages or something like that, it'll be nice to be able to have that in there just for reference purposes. So again, just another tool available for you with the video port. So that's basically all there is under graphics. Under multimedia, you have volume control. So again, like Chi mentioned, on the multimedia board or multimedia card, there is an audio out jack that you could connect. It's a standard audio jack that's on the back of the Orion, and again, this allows you to be able to kind of do some audio settings. I can close that. Under applications, we also have, under multimedia, we have network. So network, we have two options there. We have our Orion web browser that you could launch. That's basically what you're looking at here. We also have a network analyzer. Again, this is a Wireshark network analyzer. So with the web browser, you could open up multiple instances, multiple browsers essentially. Again, notice when I open up a new browser, because I toggled it into the full screen mode, that's kind of why you see it there. But if I hit F11, it kind of brings it back out to, not full mode. But notice when I launch new applications, they show up on my taskbar, just like they would on your PC. Again, I could also have a different tab on this browser if I wanted to. All right. So, for example, on this different tab, let's say here I have my homepage of my Orion, which is the local host. But on this new tab, if I wanted to navigate to maybe another IED that has a browser, I can do that certainly. So, for example, if I wanted to browse to my electronics panel meter, I could go to 172.168.102 and hit that IP address, and it'll browse me to that Biotronics meter. And the reason it does that is because the Biotronics meter is on the same network as the Orion. So if you have it on the same switch or connected to the same network somehow, you're able to browse to different IEDs that have a browsing capability. All right, so that is definitely one of the really nice features about the Orion video port option. It lets you be able to navigate to different browsers that are on the same network. So definitely utilize that for those customers that have it. I'm going to go ahead and close this tab out for now. So we're back to my home page. I'm going to close out one of these browser applications. I'm going to also close my volume application that I had running. Other tools, while we're in the browser discussion, other tools that you have available to you with the NovaTech web browser are this little settings tool. If I click on it, notice I have ability to do new windows if I needed to, import, export, browse bookmarks. But what I wanted to show you guys here is preferences. So again, this is going to be web browser preferences, or Orion's web browser preferences. So if I open that up, what you'll see is a little window. So again, you could come to the font styles and kind of make your own changes there if you wanted to. Again, I would recommend leave those the way they are unless there's a reason you want to change it. One thing I did want to point out is this being able to have your own custom homepage. So by default, when you launch a browser or when you hit this little home icon, it basically goes to whatever link you have specified here if you have custom defined. So right now I have custom, and I have my my overview.svg screen as my home page. So if I change that, so if I close this and I hit this home page, that's where it's going to take me to. It's going to take me to that overview.svg screen. So again, it's nice to know that you have tools available to you to kind of do these kind of things. If I go back to preferences and I change my preference for that screen to be my home page, I'll change this to be localhost, and there's really not a save. All you do is close it, and now when I hit home, it's going to take me to just where I am, on my localhost homepage. So keep that in mind. Definitely recommend maybe playing around with that. Or kind of, you want the screen to be always available, or your main screen or your homepage screen. Go ahead and for preferences and make that a change. Other things you have available to you are basically doing up to do bookmarks. So I can come here and say, you know what, let's go to my archive tab and make bookmark this page. So when I bookmark it now, under my bookmarks, I'm able to jump to it from there. So if I'm at the home page or anything, I could jump to my bookmark. So a list of your bookmarks will show up here. So it's just a nice way to navigate around the web browser, the Orion web browser. And then here is just the history, basically, if you want to create a new tab or anything like that. So that's all that is there. Back to applications. So if I go back to applications, that was the web browser, kind of just quick overview. Under network, we also have the Wireshark available network analyzer. So if I launch that, this is what it looks like. It's kind of nice. It's kind of, if you're familiar with Wireshark, you could play around with this a good amount. But if I wanted to start, capture and maybe even do a filter of the IP address for my Biotronics meter, I could do IP and filter by that particular IP address. And it'll give me all the traffic that's associated there with that device. So just a nice tool to have there for a network analyzer. For now, I'm going to close it, and I will say stop and without saving capture. What else we got? Under System. So under System tab, we have a few different things. We have the command line terminal. So if I open that, it's basically the same thing that we were looking at earlier. Again, basically having root access to the Orion, the command line prompt for you to run different types of commands. So we looked at that earlier, so that's in a couple of different locations. We also have a terminal emulator. So the difference is, we saw the command line, it gives you a command line, versus the terminal emulator, which gives you what we call the NovaTech shell menu. Again, if you're connected to the front of the Orion, you use the NovaTech user to log in, you'll see this menu of options, and we've definitely went through this, so I won't spend the time to go through these different menus, but network IP address changes, being able to open up comms to a certain port, all those different tools that are available to you, or even passing through to a device. So if I did, I don't know if I don't know if I have any SEL devices on here, but see, 5, 6, maybe, I don't know if the device is on the same connected at this point, but all right, so I don't have that device communicating right now, but that would allow you to pass through to an SEL device, things like that. So to be able to have that level of functionality just from having the monitor connected to the Orion with a keyboard without a laptop is really significant. So definitely wanted to make that point. And you can also, yeah, so. That's really, and then, so the file manager is going to be essentially what we looked at earlier, just being able to navigate around the different directories of the Orion. How are we doing on? Yeah, Chi, if you want to think we want to take it from here and go through some of the web UI settings. What do you think?
Yep, sounds good. All right, let me change presenter. Then show my screen. All right, we'll switch back to our web UI. This is a little bit clearer to see than the direct video monitor there. So I'm going to go through a few things. There's some questions that popped up too that a lot of people are asking how users should do auto login and full screen mode and so on. So I'll be going through that. So what I want to go through first, though, is some of these questions already popped up, so we may as well just jump in it. So a lot of people want to have a user that auto logs in and they have access to, say, the one-line diagram. Bear in mind, sorry, I'm currently testing our next firmware, so this might look different for anyone who's been using our current firmware, 9.6. This is our beta version of the next firmware, so you get a little bit of a sneak peek of what some of the interfaces look like. So right now in the user, obviously it look a bit different, but in the event that you do want a kind of an auto user that's read-only, I'm going to go through the exercise of doing that. Let's do add user, and I'm going to call this view only. And hopefully I don't have a strict permission. And so what we usually recommend for a read-only, especially for a view-only user for the direct video, is this video permission here. Oops, let's bring all that back. Sorry, this video, and then because they need access to the web pages too, we're going to do both of these. So that's the permissions. Obviously, you can go in and figure out what other permission this user can have, but if you want them to have, no ability to send controls, acknowledge alarms, this 3 is usually, and they just can view, let's say, one-line diagrams and so on, or they don't have access to changing the configs, nothing. So these are what you can start off as, and then you can build on that if you want. All right, let's hopefully type in the password correctly. All right. So we create a new view-only user. So that's the basic settings for that, for creating a user that you want to be view-only. Obviously, if you have a super user like NovaTech, you can have everything, including the video. Just because we're doing the direct video webinar, the key one is the video permission here if you want that user to log in to the Orion environment / desktop. Even if they are a local user on the Orion, they don't have this permission, they would not be able to log in. So keep in mind with that. All right, so that was under settings users. We're going to go back to settings. And for the Orion LX or LX Plus, there will be a display option here. You won't see that option if you're in the MX or LXM. Obviously, those don't have a video output port, so you won't see this option in your settings menu. And here, this is what answers some people's questions already, is in the event that you reboot the Orion, you want someone to log in, this is where you would enable that auto login. And you want the view-only user because you don't want a super user or any other user to auto login. And delay time, so when the Orion boots up, the login screen appears. You can delay it so that if, let's say, you want that login screen to be open for, let's say, 60 seconds, if no one enters anything in during that login screen, then it'll auto login as view only. So you can have a delay time for login just in case someone else wants to log in as a different user. So there's a delay time there. And for in the event that you there's no activity, so the direct video, if there's no activity, let's say for 15 minutes, it's going to kind of go to sleep. So if anytime you ever see your touchscreen monitor just goes blank, that means it's in sleep mode. You can actually disable that, just enter 0, so never go in disabled mode. When you're waking out of a sleep, you have the option of, if you want to lock it, that means that if this is checked off, that means you have to log in again. So log in as any of the user. If you want it to have it so that it goes back to whatever user that was logged in, then you can disable this screen lock here. So there's a few settings that you can play around with based on your preference, your security level, and so on in your substation. If you want to be pretty locked down, I would say, turn this to 15 minutes. Inactivity, it automatically locks, goes to sleep, and so on. So like any other web settings, you need to make sure you save the changes. It does tell you that after saving changes, you must log out the Orion desktop or environment and then re-log in. So if you're doing this setting while you're connected to the video, I'm just doing the web interface to my LX right now, but while you're doing it on the Transduction monitor, for example, you need to log out of that user and log back in. So for it to take place. I'm going to go through some other settings that might come in handy while you're using a display monitor. So under the settings web UI, this will be some recap of other webinars we've done, but so that you're aware, depending on your touchscreen monitor at the substation, maybe you have a very small touchscreen monitor or the resolution's a bit weird, and I think I've heard some customers talk about this, especially if you're a technician, you're wearing gloves or so on. Sometimes these menu options, like our link bar, one line here, for example, might be too small for them. And so what we've added in is very simple, but at the same time it helps a lot of our users, is use large text in header bar and link bar on HMI. So when you select this and we save it at the bottom here, you can see that now the menu options, the link bar options bigger. So it kind of helps with, smaller monitors or awkward resolution monitors, anyone. So now you can select these menu options a little bit easier, especially if you're wearing gloves. This is new. So this is actually the new firmware, in the new firmware. So you guys would not have seen this just yet. So a request came in, and the reason being for this is that, let's say, you got your one line, your SVG files running on the Orion at your substation. someone remotely pushes a new version of the SVG file onto the Orion. So that Orion at the substation now has a new SVG file, but it won't appear until someone manually refresh it. So we obviously saw that as a flaw. So what we now have is that we automatically refresh the SVG screens and we check, and you can say, let's say every 30 seconds, 60 seconds was default. So every 60 seconds or 30 seconds, it checks if there's a new SVG file, and if there is, it refreshes, and now, so what that means is that regardless of anyone changing SVG files remotely, the SVG files on your transduction at the substation, if your home screen or your auto login screen is appearing, it automatically refreshes. So it uses the greatest and latest. So that's a feature request from a customer that we just implemented, and you'll get it in the next firmware release. For anyone who isn't aware of as well, so we went through, if it was inactive for 15 minutes, it goes to sleep. You also can have it inactive, let's say, within that 15 minutes, or if you don't go to sleep at all, but you want the screen to still stay on, but if it's inactive for, let's say, 5 minutes, you can actually redirect your web browser to a different screen. So you can say maybe the enunciator is what you're more worried about. So I actually redirect your tile enunciator, and then so whoever walks into the substation, they don't have to log in, whatever, they just see the enunciator because that's the redirect screen after inactivity. So there's a few options. There's home screen, there's the redirect screen. Again, it takes a bit of playing around with to figure out what you want. Most people usually do redirect and home screen to be the same. And whatever screen is important to you, your enunciator, your one-line diagram, and so on. Everyone's aware of this. This is for your quick hyperlink on your home menu. Link bar, for anyone who hasn't played around with it, this is what you call a link bar. And you can configure, let's say, an enunciator, and this could be your enunciator. Save. And now I have another link bar option up there. So for security purposes, so EOP kind of showed everyone at the beginning how you can kind of toggle to the full screen mode. So when someone auto logs in, or the Orion auto logs in after reboot, it can be full screen. And what you can also do is you can also hide certain things and only show link bar. So I don't know if anyone's ever played around with this, but this is what that helps with. So let's say your auto login screen is your HMI screen, so your one line. So on your one line viewing screen, you can say show link bar, but then hide header. And you can say no login, for example. So that means that when the Orion boots up, it auto logs into our view only. And the web browser, so we're going to be very clear about this. There's a desktop login and there's a web browser login. So the desktop logs in automatically with a view-only user, and then the web browser will launch to the home screen, which is going to be full screen, and then you can have it so that this is no login, and then we can save it. And so, for example, they will log in, and let's see if I can do F11 on here, mission F11. So this will what it looks like to everyone. They don't have a URL because it's in full screen mode. They don't have access to the home archive file because we hid the header bar, but we showed the link bar. So now that view-only user can access just the one line and the enunciator, if I have that configured properly. And we can actually hide this enunciator too if we want to. So let's be more restrictive in that sense. Let's play around with this. So there was multiple security questions that came in, so I want to emphasize this on a little bit as a focus point. So let's say for our enunciator alarms, we want to hide the header too and do no login. we save. So again, so yeah, so when someone logs in automatically, full screen mode, they can navigate between these two, and they don't have the menu bar. So that's how you can lock it. Obviously, yeah. So now, if you want to exit out of the function, the full screen, you do function F11. So so just so that you're aware, if someone knows about the whole F11, I need to double check on this. They can always reduce it down to access the URL bar. So if they know what they're doing, they can still navigate. That's just I guess downside of the loophole of the whole F11 key. Eob, I don't know if you're still there, but do you know if there's a way to restrict the F11 key or no?
You mean, I'm not sure if there's a way to restrict that. I would have to look into it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. But anyway, so let's switch back to our, so we're actually nearing the end of our power hour. Obviously, quick recap on certain things. We do have our power support community. If you still don't have a login for it, please go in there, request for a login. I myself is one of the approvers, so we try to do it within the day. You should get an email from the website giving you your login and your default password and so on. And this is where all our webinars are stored. You pretty much, I don't know, we've been doing for almost 2 years now, year and a half. So any old ones, you can search for it, watch it, and so on. We still do have our booking site. For anyone who has questions specifically about this webinar too, you can book myself or Eob or other sales engineers as well. For a 30-minute session, we can go through certain things that we might have missed today, or you have any specific application, any questions you want, we can try to accommodate you during these bookings. All right, that being said, thank you everyone for attending this webinar, and we will see you in 2 weeks. I believe we are talking about PRP and HSR, our new feature that we're adding to our Orion, so we'll see you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.